Hey guys, so it has been crazy times, and I came out right by our house, a little place that reminds me of Adventureland because of all the bamboo. But anyway, I wanted to give you guys some tips on how to avoid some of the crowds, whether it's for your health or whether it's just because you want to avoid crowds. So as soon as the park's open, this will be here for you to be able to avoid some of those crowds, our best tips and tricks. Alright, so let's go ahead and jump into these tips that we have for avoiding the crowds at the parks, because believe it or not, there are a couple tips and ways to be able to do this, even though Disney has gotten super smart in keeping their crowd levels full at their parks. So the first one that we have is to utilize the times in the day when crowds are the lowest. Now there are a few ways to do this, and the first one is to go to rope drop. Now if you don't know what rope drop is, it is the start of the day when the park first opens and the cast members literally hold up a rope, usually in front of you, and they drop it when the park is open, and you can actually walk while you'll be escorted to different rides within the park. So that's rope drop, and that usually has the lowest crowds. Now there is a crowd right around the rope, but then after it drops, if you're not heading to any of the big popular attractions, then you're going to be able to go within the park, and it's going to be fairly empty for at least another hour or so until the parks start filling up and people actually start coming, because it's not as early anymore. Then the next one that we have is to utilize the times of the day during meal times. During meal times, people we all get hungry at the same time, so they flock to the restaurants and they fill up, and then there's a lot less people at the rides. Now, will they be empty? No, but you'll have less crowd times during that time. The last thing that we have is to utilize during closing time. Now, closing time is usually when there's a lot of shows going on, nighttime shows. People want to watch those, and so the wait times on the rides usually go down a little bit, as do some of the walking areas around the parks, because people are kind of congregated around wherever that show is, or they got tired and they decided that they wanted to go back to their hotel or back home. So closing time is a great time to be able to find a little bit more space within the parks. The next tip that we have is to avoid major holidays, conferences, and competition times. As I said before, Disney has gotten better at keeping the parks busy throughout the year. There's not really a slow season the way that we used to see it, but you can check online for major events that are going on at the parks, because I promise you it will be crowded then. It will feel very crowded, and it's just a good way to be able to just kind of avoid those big major crowds and big groups of people coming through the parks. The next one that we have is to know the popular rides, and if you don't care to ride them, go the opposite direction. This especially qualifies for the times during rope drop when people are kind of congregating for those really, really big attractions and popular attractions. And sometimes we don't really know why those are popular, but people still do it. So if you are wanting to go toward those rides, I can guarantee you there's going to be a big crowd. But if you're wanting to avoid the crowd, as soon as that rope drops, you can head off into an area where it's not really populated, like we said before. And then the other thing is, as you're going the opposite direction, you can also get fast passes for those popular rides for later in the day, and you can go through the fast pass line, and it will be so much smaller than waiting in that crowd at the beginning of the day or waiting in the long line in the middle of the day. That's the normal standby line. The next tip that we have is to find secluded place in the parks when the crowds are at their highest point. Anthony and I do this all the time. We've gone to restaurants. We just go sit on a bench somewhere. We'll ride the less popular rides during the most crowded time, because people don't really go there as much, and you can really escape the heat and you can escape all the people during that time and just kind of watch as Disney magic happens around you, and that is super fun. And the last one that we have is to leave the park in the afternoon when it fills up. And I know so many people might get upset with me about this. You're paying a really high ticket price to be in the park during that day. But let me tell you, it is no fun and not worth the price if you're not able to enjoy your time there, especially if you're tired or you're really hot. It's just not fun. So Sometimes it's actually the best thing to do to actually leave the park and maybe go rest at your hotel. Maybe you could go to Disney Springs, you could go to the pool, and guys, one of the most underrated things is to take a tour of the resorts that are on property. There's so many tours, so many classes that you can take, so many different things that you can do at the resorts, and there's not going to be a lot of people there because everybody's at the parks. So I hope that that is helpful for you guys. Those are our best tips to avoid the crowds at the parks at any given time of the day. So I hope that that's helpful for you. Let me know if you have any tips or tricks that you guys use. We always want to learn, and we want to be able to share more ways that other people are doing this as well. Thank you guys so much, and we will see you all in another video.